Oh, hey there, audit friends and family. Credibility is everything in audit, right? Lose it, and even your best audits will fall flat. So, today in this episode, we're breaking down 4 common ways that auditors unintentionally damage their relationships with audit clients. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to Audit Bites, the podcast that helps auditors become awesome. Join us for bite-sized info and education to excel in your auditing career.
All right, you've heard the intro. Today, it's all about how to lose credibility with your clients. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I have been told that we have issues with LinkedIn today. So, what I'm going to do for my friends over on YouTube, give me just 1 second, because what we're going to do is go over to LinkedIn and drop the link on LinkedIn for people to join us on YouTube. So that's going to take 1 second because we are not streaming on LinkedIn right now. I do know that we are streaming on YouTube, and it is, well, a LinkedIn issue. So what we're going to do is see if we can get our friends from LinkedIn to come join us over on YouTube. So if you bear with me for just one moment, because man, this is a bear when this happens, huh? Uh-oh, it looks like the LinkedIn feed is now up. So, okay, let me just type into my folks here though, so that we can get everyone on the same page. All right. If I'm going to say, if you are having problems on LinkedIn, please join us on YouTube. And here's the link. Because oddly enough, it is playing on my desktop. Um, It is playing on my desktop, but it's not playing on my mobile phone. So that's pretty interesting. So maybe we have some issues. All right. So, with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. There we go. I just dropped the YouTube link. Just dropped the YouTube link on LinkedIn. All right. Here we go. All right. Thank you, my friends, for being patient with me. You guys are so great to me. I don't deserve to have you all in my life. So listen, you want to know how to completely ruin your relationship with audit clients? Actually, it's pretty doggone easy. All you got to do is present some overblown findings, get caught up in irrelevant nonsense, and just for fun, blindside their boss at a closing meeting, and boom, trust destroyed, credibility gone. Okay, okay. Clearly, I don't recommend that you do any of that, right? None of it. Clearly, I don't recommend that you do any of that. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to flip the script. This episode is all about what not to do if you want to build and keep credibility with your audit clients. Because let's face it, sometimes we auditors, well, we get in our own way. And it's not because we're bad at doing our jobs. It's really because we don't always realize how our approach affects the people that we're auditing. And so today, how to lose credibility with audit clients. My man Hassam is here. Hey man, how you doing? Hey, look, we still have got to catch up, sir. And Klaus, you say you don't see the YouTube link. It's probably because you're just blind, man. I mean, there it is right there. It's in the chat on LinkedIn. All right. So how to lose credibility with your audit clients. we're just going to jump right in to the very. So here's what we're going to cover today. All right. Here's what's on deck. The biggest credibility killers auditors fall into. That's the first thing we're going to discuss. Next, real world stories where it all went wrong. And third, practical takeaways you can use to not be, well, that auditor. But I tell you what, before I jump right in, I've got a question for you all. Have you ever seen an audit go sideways because of, well, how it was handled, not what was actually found? If so, drop a yep or a yes into the chat or the comments, because you know what? I think we've all been there before where we have just handled the situation wrong and it has gone sideways, even though what we were saying was 100% accurate. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I have had a couple of posts regarding sometimes it doesn't just help to be right. Sometimes the way you deliver things to people matters a whole lot too. So, what would an episode of Audit Bites be without story time? All right, so let's kick things off with a little story, and I call this one The Audit That Never Ended. So, just picture this. You are assigned to an operations audit. Pretty standard stuff, nothing earth shattering. Just make sure that the day to day processes are running like they should. Now, I'm on a team with two other auditors when this happened. One of them, let's call her Kathy. Kathy was very meticulous, very, very meticulous, like next level meticulous kind of stuff. She believed that there was no such thing as too much documentation, no detail too small, no question too irrelevant. So one day, we sit down with the department head and Kathy starts asking questions. Fair enough, right? Because that's what we do as auditors. The biggest part of our job is asking quality questions so that we can get quality answers so that we can have better audits. By the way, that's the title of my best-selling book on Amazon, Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits. Go grab your copy today. But as she was asking questions, things started to shift. As we were talking to the client, she looked at a stack of invoices on a desk and she asked, "Why do you staple these horizontally instead of vertically? Why do you staple these horizontally instead of vertically?" Do you guys think that was a good question to ask? Because I absolutely think that was a terrible question. So, yeah, that was a real question. And you know what? When they gave her the answer, she actually wrote it down as an inconsistency issue. So now here I am sitting here trying to pretend like either A, this is normal, or B, this is not happening, or C, I'm invisible, because this was embarrassing. And so the client looked like he was about to flip the desk over. And that was the first day of the audit. How do you think things went from that point on? Because the client was just mad.
How dare you?
You could just see the look on his face. And I knew that it could only go downhill from there. So the audit dragged on. Weeks passed. Every minor deviation became a bullet point for her. Every form without a second initial flagged. Every procedure that didn't align perfectly with the policy from 2011 noted. And something happened along the way. At some point, the client just stopped talking to us. Meetings got shorter. Emails stopped being answered. And by the time we reached the reporting phase, the client was emotionally checked out. And it wasn't that they didn't respect audit or the audit process, it's that they no longer respected us as individual auditors. You see, we had burned through our credibility by showing them that, well, we didn't know what actually mattered to their business. Now, I see we've got some people saying, yep, been there, done that. Somebody's laughing at me. That's probably Hussam again. What did I say, man? Why are you laughing at me already? But no, I'm sure we've all been there as auditors. I'm sure we've all been there. You know what's really interesting? The stream still is not working on my mobile device, but it is working on my um, desktop. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. All right. So, so listen, my friends. This meeting actually happened, and the clients lost respect for us. Here's what I learned, though. My big lesson was you don't lose credibility in one dramatic moment. You lose it in the little things, those unimportant findings, the nitpicky observations, and the moments where you make the clients feel like you're wasting their time. So you don't lose credibility in one dramatic moment. You lose it in the little things. So today, we're going to break down 3 major ways we lose credibility with our audit clients and how to stop doing it. We'll even throw in a bonus one at the end. So, with that said, let's get started with one of the biggest traps, and that is presenting untrue or overblown issues. So, credibility killer number 1 is presenting untrue or overblown issues. So, now let's get one thing clear. Credibility does not mean sugarcoating the truth. You can and should call out real risk. But when you start blowing small issues out of proportion, or worse, presenting things that aren't even actual problems, you go from being a trusted advisor to the auditor who cried wolf. And once that label sticks, good luck getting clients to take anything you say seriously ever again. So, listen, there was this one audit I was on. We're going to call this one the procurement review of doom. You see, everything was going well until a junior auditor on the team, let's call him Nate. Nate came across something that he thought was a major control breakdown. And what was that, you ask? Someone had printed an asset label using a non-standard format, not a stolen asset, not a mislabeled asset, just a different font on the label. Now, Nate was fired up. This is what he said. He said, this shows failure to follow fixed assets policy. It's a potential compliance issue. And so what else could be wrong? And I remember asking him, I was like, yo, man, did you actually check the policy? And did it actually specify a certain font for the label? Like, we're getting a little nitpicky here. Turns out he hadn't, and the policy didn't even specify a label format. But by then, Nate had already brought it up to the client in a way that sounded way too serious. So now the client was clearly confused and defensive, and now we had to walk it all back without looking like amateurs. And so my lesson here was, when you present something as a finding, you're essentially telling a story. And like any good story, it needs to be based on facts, not assumptions. And so if your finding falls apart under light questioning, it damages your credibility. And it makes the client wonder, what else might you be over exaggerating? So let me ask you all, have you ever had to walk back a finding after realizing it wasn't valid, or it wasn't as serious as you thought it was? Now be honest with me. Drop a yikes into the comments if you've ever had to walk back an audit finding that wasn't that serious. See, that's happened to a few people. That's happened to Assam. He says, absolutely. Absolutely, we've had to walk back audit findings that weren't that serious. Okay. So let's get back to credibility killer. Wait, we might be on number 2 now. I may have misnumbered those. Number 1, presenting untrue or overblown issues. Now, I know what you're wondering. If that is credibility killer number 1, what can we do to prevent this from happening? So here are 3 tips. First, validate before you escalate. Don't flag something as a finding until you've confirmed all the facts and confirm that the issue actually violates policy or good sound internal controls or a stated business objective. Now, the next thing you want to do is avoid drama-driven language. Use language that reflects the true impact of the issue, because not every misstep is a control failure. Some are just human behavior. And the third thing I want you to do is, well, ask yourself, would I defend this in front of leadership? If you are not confident that your finding would stand up in front of an executive or worse, a regulator, then it's probably not ready for some sort of an audit report. So again, credibility killer number 1 is presenting untrue or overblown issues. The 3 ways that you can tackle this is validate before you escalate, avoid drama-driven language, because some people really like a little bit of drama, right? And then ask yourself, would I be able to defend this in front of leadership? All right. So look, that's 1 down. Let's talk about another credibility killer, and that is indulging in the irrelevant. And what I mean by that is turning molehills into mountains, indulging in the irrelevant. You see, after the stapler incident and then after this label incident, I thought we would be extra careful about the things that we call the finding, but unfortunately, that was not the last time I watched an audit team shoot themselves in the foot. The next one wasn't about being wrong. It was about being, well, exhausting. Let me explain to you what I mean. So here's the scene, you guys. I'm mentoring this brand new auditor. We'll call him Jerry. Super sharp guy, fresh out of grad school, and he's got a clipboard, 3 highlighters, and a passion for policy. And I swear he kept quoting the IIA standards in casual conversation with audit clients. And I was just like, man, come on. They don't care about this.
How dare you?
We were assigned to do a facilities access audit, who could come in and out of the facility. One of Jerry's tasks was to check how quickly new hires were issued their building badges. Now, the company policy, it was kind of clear, right? It stated that badges should be issued on the first day of employment before the employee is allowed to access secure areas independently. That sounds reasonable, right? That sounds fairly reasonable. Now, HR, they had a decent setup. New hires would arrive. They would sign a few onboarding documents, and then they'd watch the cringy welcome video from the CEO. We all have those, right? The cringy CEO welcome videos. And then they would walk across the hall to security to pick up their badge. So far, so good, right? This all sounds pretty standard. Simple, streamlined. No one had ever complained. No one had gone rogue and launched a cyber attack during onboarding. But Jerry found something. He calls me over and he whispers to me like he had just found Enron 2.0. Hey, Rob, I found a procedure gap. And I think he wanted a pat on the back. I raised an eyebrow like The Rock. I was like, hey, man, what you got? So he shows me this onboarding log. One employee had signed their paperwork at 9:12 a.m. and then they received their badge at, wait for it, 9:26 a.m. 14 minutes later. And so I asked, Was the employee waiting in HR the entire time? Were they not in a secure area or something? And he said, yeah, they were sitting in the lounge drinking coffee. I said, okay, so no unescorted access to secure areas, correct? He said, correct. What's the risk? He said, none directly, but it's a procedural deviation. What? Okay. So after a long pause, I took a breath and I was like, Jerry, are we here to protect the assets or to enforce coffee breaks? I kind of thought it was funny. But Jerry, he didn't laugh. He highlighted the entry in pink on his clipboard and he wrote potential process control lapse, badge issuance not immediate. I was like, immediate? Come on, Jerry. And he was like, the policy states the same day, not within like 30 seconds of the pen touching the paper. That's what I said to him. The policy says the same day, not within 30 seconds of the pen touching the paper. So I learned a huge lesson from this. I'll tell you what that lesson was in just a second. Because the psalm says the 5 C's became useful. Yeah, Jerry didn't use the 5 C's. Jerry just found something he thought was a deviation. You should have seen my man with his highlighters. He was highlighting everything. And the funny part is, he's a seasoned auditor now out there in the field. And so I'm not necessarily making fun of him. Okay, yes, I am. But he and I have talked about it and we've laughed about it now that he's gotten a good bit of experience. So even though I am laughing at him, Jerry thought it was funny too. He got a kick out of it too. I see some people on LinkedIn have gotten a kick out of it too. I see the laughing emojis coming up. Okay. Okay. Here's what I learned from this. When you chase issues that don't matter, you train your clients to stop listening. They start to wonder, if this is what you think matters, do you really understand our business? Let me say that again. When you chase issues that don't matter, you train your clients to stop listening. So auditors, we've got to not be petty. There's some petty people in this world. We got to not be some of those petty people. We have to not be some of those petty people. Karina is here. Karina, it's been a long time. I hope that you are doing well. Karina says, I'd like to think I wouldn't take it that far, but sometimes I struggle with not getting nitpicky. You know what? You know what, Karina? If you ever think that you're being nitpicky, you need to start using my new AI software for auditors, Audit Leverage. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It helps us not be petty and nitpicky as auditors. And you know what? I don't think you're nitpicky. You don't strike me as that type. Are you petty? Are you petty and nitpicky, Karina? Is that what you're telling all of us here? Okay. All right. So listen, credibility, say that word 3 times real fast, right? Credibility killer number 2 is indulging in the irrelevant. But I know what you're thinking. Okay, Rob, you've identified the problem. What in the world can we do if this is what we're suffering from? All right, my friends, I'm glad you asked. First thing, ask so what for every issue. Look, if you can't tie it back to a risk, an impact, or a value, it probably doesn't belong in the report. It's probably not adequate or accurate. So that's the first thing that you can do. The second thing I want you to do is audit for materiality, not perfection. You ever been, see, this is what, all right. You all are going to have to excuse me for one moment while I go on a Sarbanes-Oxley rant. This is what I dislike about Sarbanes-Oxley. You go out and you test controls, and if one is wrong, oh my God, the sky is falling. No business is perfect. If I test 100 items and I got 2 that are wrong, I'm just going to chalk that up to everyday operations. And overall, within reason, the control functions as intended. When I'm doing socks, I got to put on a whole nother hat and look at it differently. Audit for materiality, not perfection. If I look at 100 items and 50 of them are wrong, that's a 50% deviation. Obviously, something is wrong. But when everything is wrong, we are put into the petty category, and our clients don't want to talk to us because we don't live in the real world. We are a little bit delulu. All right. So, the third thing that you can do is remember that time is currency. Every irrelevant issue that we bring up cost us our credibility and our clients' patience with us. So, how to lose credibility with audit clients. So far, we've talked about how making up problems and focusing on trivial things aren't great moves. It's not a good look for us. But if you really want to lose trust in a single conversation, know what you can do? Just surprise somebody in front of their boss. So let's talk about the fine art of the audit ambush. But before we do, let's do a couple of things. Let's go back to the audience. Now, Karina says she likes to think that she's not petty. I don't think you are. I mean, I've met you, I've talked to you. You seem pretty level headed and reasonable. Then again, I've been known to be wrong a few times. So, no, I'm just kidding. now, now, Hassan, why are you laughing at me, man? Yeah, that's Hassan. Why are you laughing at me? I'm losing my voice today. Okay, before we continue on, let's talk about something fairly serious, though. Audit Leverage is the first and best AI powered tool designed by auditors, well, me, for auditors. We have 5 powerful modules with over 15 incredible tools that, well, leverage, get it, artificial intelligence for better audit outcomes. You can do things like create a risk matrix in minutes, not hours. You can practice handling client objections. So if you have an issue and you think a client might object to it, you can practice within the system. You can even ask questions about the audit standards and get answers. Go to auditleverage.net if you want to check it out. But since I have your attention here, I might as well go all in on Audit Leverage because I think it is a fantastic tool. So check out this brief video.
Welcome to Audit Leverage, the AI-powered platform that is transforming how auditors work, brought to you by That Audit Guy. Auditing today isn't just about ticking boxes, it's about delivering insights, uncovering and evaluating risks, and adding real value. But too often, auditors are buried in tedious research, vague root cause assessments, and endless report revisions. Meet Audit Leverage, the AI-powered platform built to help auditors plan smarter, analyze deeper, and communicate clearer. Let's dive right in and take a look at some of our modules and tools. No more scattered spreadsheets or missing connections. The Risk Control and Audit Test Matrix presents the risks, maps them to controls, and aligns both with audit tests, so you can see the full picture in seconds. This is a powerful tool within our planning module. Simply enter your industry and the process you're auditing, and watch the magic happen, a risk matrix that you can actually use. You're likely excited about what Audit Leverage offers, but you might have some questions too. Visit our Help Center or reach out to our team.
All right, so that is Audit Leverage. Remember, people, auditleverage.net. And without further ado, let me tell you about another story. I call this one the closing meeting ambush. The closing meeting ambush. I wish I could say this next story was secondhand, but nope. I was right there front row for this one too, watching it unfold like a slow motion train wreck. So here's what happened. We were wrapping up a standard audit on the procurement process, and everything had gone pretty well. I mean, good cooperation, solid walkthroughs, no real drama. We had some discussions about a few inconsistent approval workflows, but nothing huge, not enough to warrant a real recommendation, right? Now, here's where things get interesting. The audit supervisor, we'll call him Kyle. He decides to have a little something extra for the closing meeting, for effect. So the room was full. CFO was there, the department head was there, we were all there. Cal pulls out the slide deck, and instead of leading with the summary, he skips right to this bullet point that reads in real bold red font: unauthorized purchase activity detected. Now that sounds scary, right? Cue immediate silence. The CFO shifts in his chair. The procurement director's face, I looked at it and he was just pale. And his manager, the guy who'd been our main contact during the entire audit, he looked completely blindsided. And then he blurted out, "Wait, what unauthorized activity?" Cal looked at him and calmly said, "It was noted that," don't you hate when auditors start like that? "It was noted." I'm like, "Wait, what?" What? He said, "It was noted. 3 purchase orders were approved by an employee whose delegation authority had expired." I'm sitting here scratching my head at this moment, like, what did he just say? I, okay, so anyway, so now, while this was technically true, it was also not new information. We had seen the log and there was a glitch in the system, and then the approvals were revalidated the next day, so the glitch was fixed. We had even talked to the manager about it, but we had never told him that it was going to be a formal finding because it had been fixed. It was just a system glitch, not a control issue. So we were all kind of confused. Like I didn't get it. I was kind of confused. So now, what was the fallout from this? Well, the fallout was the manager spent the rest of the meeting on defense. The CFO, he was irritated, not because of the issue, but because it looked like the department was trying to hide something. Or so he thought, right? And then, well, after the meeting, I pulled Cal aside and I said, "Hey, look, we just lost 3 months of goodwill in 10 minutes. All of this because Cal had some big reveal and he wanted to make some dramatic effect. He made an effect, all right, but not the kind that we actually wanted." So here's what I learned from this: there's nothing worse than finding out something's wrong at the exact same time that your boss finds out that something is wrong. If your goal is to make someone feel exposed, defensive, and completely unwilling to work with you ever again, this is how you do it. But if your goal is to build trust, you give people a heads up. You let them respond before you highlight and spotlight everything in front of their boss. Right? Like that, to me, that's just kind of common sense. Have you ever blindsided anyone? Maybe not on purpose, maybe on accident. Have you ever been blindsided? I'd love to hear the story. Drop it in the chat if you have. Have you ever blindsided anyone? Maybe not on purpose, hopefully not on purpose. Or have you ever been blindsided? Oh, yeah. Now, this is a very good comment here. Pendo, I don't know if I've ever seen you on the live podcast episode before, so welcome. If you like this episode, we're on all podcasting platforms, and you can forward it to any of your fellow friends you think might benefit from it. But Pendo says, "Wow, certain issues are housekeeping and should be discussed with management prior to an exit or audit committee meeting." Bingo, right? I mean, you win the prize. I need my Price is Right sound effect for that one, But yeah, absolutely. Some stuff is just housekeeping. So I don't know what gotten into this dude on this day, but credibility killer number 3, blindsiding the boss. Blindsiding the boss. So again, Have you ever been blindsided, or have you ever blindsided anyone? I'd love to hear your stories, and I know what you're thinking. Well, Rob, it's easy to bring up problems. That's what auditors get blamed for doing all the time. What are some solutions? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. First thing you got to do is, well, preview findings before the final meetings. If it's going to be in the report, it should be discussed beforehand. No exceptions. It should be discussed the minute that it's found, in my opinion. Now, some people wait a while, but you know, whole nother topic altogether. Next thing you want to do is avoid gotcha moments. You're not auditioning for a crime drama. This is not Law and Order. You're building professional relationships. So avoid those surprise, I gotcha moments.
How dare you?
The last thing you got to think about is surprises belong in birthday parties, not audit meetings. When people feel blindsided, they stop listening and they start planning how to avoid you next time. So, credibility killer number 3 is blindsiding the boss. You got to preview audit findings before the final meeting, avoid those gotcha moments, and then remember, surprises belong in birthday parties, not audit meetings. All right. Now, that one probably hit a nerve with some of you now, didn't it? So, before we go into our bonus credibility killer, let's take a quick breather. Let's take a quick breather. So far, we've talked about, well, why inventing or exaggerating issues will sink your credibility and how chasing irrelevant details makes the clients tune out. You know, it's kind of the professional equivalent of throwing someone under the bus live in front of their boss. But we're not done yet. Before we get to our bonus credibility killer, let's go back to the question that I asked earlier. Have you ever blindsided anyone during a meeting? Have you ever blindsided? Maybe you've been blindsided by a fellow auditor that works with you. Maybe you were the auditor that blindsided someone else. I'm just curious. No judgment here. Okay, you know what? That's a lie. I am going to judge you. Yep. I am going to judge you. So, Roger, my man, I hadn't seen you in a while. Roger, come on, man. You know I got to do it. Roger says, loving the new podcast background, up in the game. Hey, man, I have to consistently push the envelope. Our goal in life is to get better at everything that we do, right? I appreciate that, though. I really do appreciate that. Glad you noticed, man. Glad you noticed. So I see no one wants to fess up to actually blindsiding or being blindsided. So listen, though, seriously, if this episode is hitting a little close to home, well, you know what? That just means that we're all learning together. That's what we do here. We have to audit ourselves first. While I got you here, though, here's a quick plug. If you are enjoying this conversation and want more practical tips on improving client relationships, communications, or even handling tough questions, make sure you check out my course, Handling Different Conversations with Audit Clients. We dig deep into this kind of stuff, and there's always a seat open for you. If you are a part of an IIA chapter or a company with a large audit department who brings in trainers from the outside, look me up. Let's talk. I've got a course catalog of over 50, maybe 60 courses now. Go to thatauditguy.com. That is my website. Contact me here on LinkedIn. If you want to get a feel for my personality and my training, well, this is kind of what some of it is like. Go look at all my LinkedIn posts. You see who I am. I hide nothing. Thatauditguy.com. Oh, now Karina is saying, I shared results through an online task once when I should have set a meeting instead. Lesson learned. Use the right communication tools, right? Yeah, and then too, I will say, the tool has to fit the person. I've had some audit clients, they'll just say, send me a quick bullet point. That's it. And we're done. And some want you to, well, hold their hand and sing kumbaya as you talk about, as you talk about the issue. So yeah. And then Roger brings up a really good point. I think some may say I blindsided them, but I think they blindsided themselves. This has actually happened to me before too, where you know that you have communicated things to them and then they turn around and say, this is my first time hearing about this. But what I started doing years ago, especially when I was a chief auditor in the higher education space, every week I gave clients a status update. And in weeks when there was nothing to update them on, they got an update saying no update. And so each week you would see the potential concerns, not necessarily the audit issues, but the things that we found that we needed to look into a little bit deeper. See, there were two reasons why I did that. Well, actually three. First, they couldn't say that they didn't know something existed. Second, they knew everything that we knew when we knew it. But third, sometimes your clients would start investigating those things for you and they would come back with answers. Hey, you had a question about this. Here's what it is. And so when they were involved, they felt it brings about a feeling of being included in the process. So when you saw those weekly updates, when we got to the end, you couldn't say that you didn't know, unless I left it off of a weekly update. And I only did that once. Ooh, egg on my face. But yeah. Oh, that goes back to what Roger's saying. Some clients pretend that they are blindsided, and the truth is they didn't want to hear it. Right? They're listening to you like this. Yeah, absolutely. Hence the weekly status updates. The format was the same each week, so you knew exactly what to expect, and it was blasted to everyone. Now, of course, there's a communication protocol that goes with that because you want to make sure that the people who need to know what's going to be on there know too. So that's a whole nother topic altogether, though, how to develop a communication process with your audit clients. We've got whole entire courses on that too. Okay, so let's get to the bonus way to lose credibility with audit clients. Now, this one, I don't even have a title for this story. Let me just tell you, I work with a guy, let's just call him Preston. This guy looks like a Preston, right? He had what I affectionately refer to as a consultant voice. You know, the one every sentence sounded like it should be printed on a slide deck. Every comment began with, what I'm seeing here is a lack of strategic alignment and synergy. I tell you what, I got to a point where every time I heard the word synergy, I just wanted to, take that synergy and. Now, don't get me wrong. Preston was smart. He knew auditing standards, he knew frameworks, he understood COSO, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But every time he went into a client meeting, you could feel a wall go up with the audit clients. And it wasn't because of what he said necessarily, but because of how he said it. So let me give you an example. I'll never forget one meeting where a client mentioned that they had made an adjustment to their workflow. Something that we'd actually suggested in a prior audit. So that should be good news, right? You make a suggestion, client actually follows through. That should be good news, something to kind of be celebrated and something to really be happy about. When you guys think you guys agree with that? But old Preston tilted his head, looked up, and he said, I'm glad you finally come around to our way of thinking. Man, oh, that was so cringy. I was just sitting there like, uh-oh. This isn't going to end well. Come again? Our way of thinking? I ain't with this guy. Sorry, I couldn't keep that one to myself. I was having flashbacks now. You know how sometimes you're telling somebody the story and you rethink it in your head and you just fall out laughing or crying, depending on where you are at in the thought process. I was like, I'm not with this guy. Who the heck is this dude? Mm. The client was done. They smiled politely, nodded through the rest of the meeting, and never ever invited us back to anything ever again. That is until Preston left. So, all right, so let's get to the bonus credibility killer. If I can keep my head on straight. Okay, hold on. Give me a moment to compose myself here. And Pendo, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Here's a good comment. Reporting a material audit variance when the client came out with further evidence to reduce the variance and did not communicate prior to the meeting. We agreed to corroborate the further evidence and report to the audit committee later on due to timing difference. So that's a moment where a client felt blindsided with you. How did they do that then? Sound like you did the right thing to me. But sometimes, okay, look, let's just be real. People operate on their feelings, and oftentimes what they feel is not real. Now, those of us who are mature adults, we can understand and realize when we are operating out of our feelings, and we can take a step back and cool down. Those of us who aren't really adults and are still stuck in the third grade, we throw fits and temper tantrums and all kinds of stuff like that. I like to say that adults are just kids with bigger bodies and bigger paychecks, right? That's about it. Most of us have a childlike essence within us, and it takes a mature person to overcome that, especially when we are wrong. Okay, so that bonus credibility killer is acting superior instead of collaborative. So here's what that situation taught me. Credibility isn't just about what you say, it's about how you say it. And audit clients don't want to be talked down to. They want to be heard, understood, and respected. It's all about respect. We're not better than them. We're not smarter than them. We're just here to look at things differently. And hopefully, it'll help them either see what they've missed or confirm that they are doing a good job. This goes back into another controversial topic that I always talk about, though. An audit report with no issues is still a good audit report. We are assurance providers, which means we provide reasonable assurance that A, things are operating as intended, or B, things are not operating as intended, or C, some things are okay, some things are not okay. So we're here to look at things differently. We are no better than our audit and clients. Our audit clients. Roger says he doesn't like surprise birthday parties. Right? Me either. I mean, well, you know what? I take that back. I didn't think I would like them, but I did have one on my 50th a few years ago. It was a great surprise, but partially because it wasn't big. There were only a handful of people, and they were people that had significant meaning to me. I didn't think I would like it either, because but when it happened, but also there were no people jumping from behind furniture yelling surprise. It was done in a very tasteful and interesting way. So I will say I I was I'm starting to tear up thinking about it, because it was very touching. It was very, very touching. And Pendo says emotional intelligence. Exactly. This is why most of the audit training that I do is focused on soft skills. I can teach technical skills, like I teach courses on IT audit for the non-IT auditor. I can teach you how to write better reports. I can teach you how to audit artificial intelligence, especially since I built an AI platform. But none of that works if you don't understand people. I'll go back to something else that I said. And if you look at the library of episodes, there's an episode that I did where I say every auditor should study psychology. I do believe that that is true. I actually have studied psychology, partially because I was dealing with some crazy crap in my personal life, and I was trying to figure out, okay, is it me? Spoiler alert, it was not me. However, what ended up happening was I learned a lot about human behavior, how we think, and more importantly, how we respond based on how we think. Every auditor should study some baseline human behavior characteristics and traits and responses. It really does help out in your career. Yeah, nah, man. I was just joshing with you. Roger says, if done right, I can like a surprise. Yeah. I always thought I would hate a surprise party, but no complaints. It was done absolutely perfect, 100% right. I don't think that there's, and then the person that did it was telling me, hey, well, we messed up this because this was supposed to happen. I don't care. It was great. Okay, so that bonus credibility killer was acting superior instead of collaborative. Okay. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Rob, you just pointed out a problem again. No solutions. That doesn't help me at all. Let's talk about some solutions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to act like a peer, not a professor. We got to use plain language, ask curious questions, ditch the jargon unless it is truly, truly helpful. We are a peer and not the professor. The next thing we have to do is acknowledge our client's expertise. We are never the expert in what our clients do. We are experts in risk and controls, but we're not an expert in everything that every client we ever encounter does. That doesn't make sense. If we were, we'd be building rockets like Elon Musk and then catching them as they fall back down out of the sky. That's some crazy work right there. The next thing I want you to do is check your tone, not just your facts. Look, confidence is real good. You got to be confident. Arrogance, not so much. Everybody hates an arrogant auditor. And if you read my book, Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits, you'll see that I identified 5 types of auditor personalities. 4 of them are very detrimental. 1 is good. The arrogant auditor is one of those personalities. I'll tell you how to identify if you are an arrogant auditor, and I give 3 to 5 different tips on how to overcome being an arrogant auditor. All right. So let's start to recap just a little bit. This is episode number 73. Wow. I can't believe I have 73 episodes of the Audit Bites podcast. You know what though? If you like talking about fraud, join me on Fridays, every Friday live on LinkedIn and YouTube for the Friday Fraudster podcast, where we are on episode like 174, I believe. We started that one during the pandemic because we just wanted to get together and talk about fraud. We're still doing it. So how to lose credibility with audit clients, episode number 73 of Audit Bites. Today, we covered 4 big ways to lose credibility faster than you can say risk appetite. And think about this. None of them had to do with your technical knowledge. None of them had to do with your CPA or CIA or CISA license. So let's recap really quickly. Number 1, presenting untrue or overblown issues. Don't stretch the truth for drama. Verify, validate, and keep it real. Credibility killer number 2, don't indulge in the irrelevant. If the issue doesn't move the needle, don't waste everyone's time, especially your own. Credibility killer number 3, please don't blindside the boss. No surprises in meetings. If it's a finding, preview it first. Always. No exceptions. Bonus credibility killer. Don't act superior. Act collaborative or be collaborative. You're not there to lecture your clients. You're there to listen, connect, and help. You know what all of these credibility killers have in common? Anybody have any idea what all of these credibility killers have in common? So here's the deal. There is a slight delay. I just want to see if anybody can guess. So what I'm going to do is you're going to hear me say a few things while LinkedIn and YouTube catch up to where I am, because there's about a 7-second delay. But do you know what all of these credibility killers have in common? And while I wait for anyone who may want to answer that question. What I'm going to say is, if today's episode hit home with you, share it with a colleague or tag a friend, or forward it to that one person on your team who always reports everything as a finding, even though it's not. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platforms, and or connect with me on LinkedIn, because I love to hear your stories, your thoughts, and especially your audit war stories. So let's go back here. What was the question I asked? Okay. Do you know what all of the credibility killers had in common? What did all of the credibility killers have in common? Let's go back to the comments. Yeah, Pendo says developing good rapport with the auditee. I don't like that word. I use audit client, but makes half the job doable and more cooperative, right? With clients. Yeah, of course. There you go. Roger, you can't be doing that, man. I'm live here, man. You can't be saying stuff that's funny. No, so the question I asked is, do you know what all of the credibility killers had in common? And Roger said they all make sense. Oh God. Okay. So here's the deal. None of these credibility killers come from incompetence. They all come from good intention gone sideways. You see, most of us want to be thorough. We want to sound smart. We want to protect the organization's assets. But in the process, if we lose the client's trust, we've already lost the audit. So here's my challenge for you this week. I want you to audit your own audit behavior. And I want you to ask yourself, am I making people feel heard? Am I bringing value or just volume? Are you bringing them value, or are you just bringing them more work to do? The next thing I want you to ask yourself is, am I building trust or just enforcing irrelevant controls? You see, being a great auditor isn't just about what you find. It's about what people remember after you've left the room, because that is what causes them to go into action mode. So there's my challenge for you this week. Audit your own behavior. Okay, so this has been episode number 73 of the Audit Bites podcast. How to lose credibility with audit clients. I want to thank you all for joining me. I want to thank you all for your comments, because honestly, I think we're all in this together. When we hear others' pains, struggles, and triumphs, it helps us all get better together. So with that said, thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching this episode of Audit Bites. If you receive value from this podcast, do us a favor. First, tell other auditors. Second, give us a 5-star review. And finally, talk to Robert about training your auditors. Our contact information is on our website, www.thatauditguy.com. It's also where you will find our course catalog, on-demand courses, a kick-butt blog, other podcasts, Robert's best-selling books, and last but not least, audit merch. That's right, we have audit hats, shirts, mugs, and more. Thanks for watching and listening. See you next episode.